Hello, my name is Robin Whitworth. This is class, an Eating for Energy class. This is part 2. So in part 1, we really dove into energy. We dove into our sources of energy. As humans, we talked about energy tapping. We talked about our surroundings. We talked about a lot. We touched on our basic different types of foods, anti-foods versus real foods that contain the energy of the sun and how that happens. So today we're going to dive into the second part of Eating for Energy, which we're going to start with basic nutrition. And this might take you back to 3rd grade, where we talked about how we maybe even made a diagram or colored a chart where we put food into our mouths, we chewed it up, it went down our esophagus and into the stomach, where our stomach acid broke it down. Then it goes into the small intestine for long time, where nutrients are just being pulled with these little things on the edge of our intestines called villi, and then whatever's left gets dropped into the large intestine, which then sucks any last little bits of moisture out and excretes bile, and helps things get down to where we can just eliminate the very end waste product that we don't want in our bodies anymore. That's basic digestion for you. But here's something I've discovered. The more that I have taught people and helped people through their weight loss journey or changing their lifestyle, I've been coaching for 6 years. And what I learn is that digestion doesn't start in our mouths. Interesting, right? Our digestion actually begins in the mind. Have you ever thought about a certain food, and just by thinking about that food, saliva starts to run in your mouth? Have you ever smelled something like yards away? The other day I was jogging next to a really popular restaurant, and they serve an amazing breakfast, and I could smell the French toast and the syrup and all these things while I was running, and it made my stomach start growling. Digestion had begun, and I was like clear across a 7-lane highway, smelling the exhaust from this kitchen, and my digestion had started. Interesting. So I began to understand that my digestive process, how I think about food, how my energy affects food, starts in my mind. I can actually feel hungry just from the sight or smell of something that I want. You can actually tell yourself that you want these foods based on an emotion that you're feeling. We call that emotional eating. Boredom, stress, trying to get out of a situation, not thinking, trying to cope. We eat because it creates this process, this distraction in our human body. So that's basic digestion. There's going to be 3 sections today. That was the first section, was just our basic digestion. So this next section is really the nitty-gritty of how, if we eat foods that are in their more whole form, how it creates energy in our bodies. So as we eat foods like carrots, grass-fed beef, oils, avocados, grapes, all this yummy food, as we're eating these things, it goes down into our body, and when it does get into our small intestine, it breaks down all of our food into its basic nutrients, right? Everything will break down into glucose as a source of energy for our body, and then the little vitamins, little teeny minerals, all of that stuff helps our bodies with its hormone production, with going into our cells and actually creating, mitochondria or fueling the mitochondria, which then creates more cells in our bone marrow and all of these things. All of this stuff is going on all the time. That's why we burn a lot of calories just sitting there. They call it your resting, calorie rate or whatever. You can burn like 1,200 calories just living, because our body is always in a constant process of recreating. It's really cool. So as our body breaks down this food, it creates glucose, which then rushes up to our brain. It gives our brain energy. It gives everything the energy that it needs to recreate these blood cells, to recreate skin cells that have been, hurt by a bug bite, or you've gotten a scrape, or If you've been very stressed or had a mental illness and your brain needs food to repair itself, it needs sleep. So when you are eating this whole food, you're getting all of that good stuff. When you eat more packaged and processed stuff, you don't get the vitamins and minerals to do any of that. So while your belly might feel full, you will be heavily lacking in energy. So while you've been taking in all these more whole foods to be able to get the energy, realize that our cells are a circle. And you may remember this from, basic biology. Our cells look like a circle. And all around this circle is a membrane. And this membrane has little doors that open and close to let in certain proteins. Protein is what makes all of our cells have energy, but let in proteins to fuel that cell. The interesting thing about our body and digestion is that we have to have certain vital minerals and vitamins to unlock these little doors. So what some people don't understand is you can't just go and eat a wonderful grass-fed beef steak and get any energy from it if you haven't also eaten some vitamins and minerals. That's why the doctors say to take your vitamins every day. But unfortunately, we have a lot of lookalikes out there, synthetics, and things that do not function like the vitamins and minerals that we get from whole fruits and veggies. So when you sit down to eat an animal product, which most people eat those for the protein, you won't be getting the energy from it if you're not also eating fresh fruits and vegetables, because those little doors can't unlock to let it in. And if you're eating a lot of sugar and a lot of fats, like saturated fats, really fatty foods, you can have fats in your days. And I'm going to explain some of the healthier fats, but really high fat and high saturated fat items that come from animal products like dairy, meats, cheeses, milk, those kind of things, yogurt, those fats actually, they gum up these doors. They make the cells sluggish and sticky and fatty to where even if you eat a few vegetables, it's hard. It's hard for them to function. And that's when we feel sluggish. That's when we feel a headache coming on. We're just not processing. We're not getting. So I find a lot of my clients, they'll be trying to eat healthier, but yet they're swallowing it all down with 44 ounces of processed sugar laced with chemical. And so even though they just ate a salad, they can't even get what they need because their cells are so gummed up with sugar and fats. So while we can eat a few yummy treats that just are so pleasurable and meant for human pleasure, it's important that we limit those for the benefit of our body being able to metabolize the food that we eat. So when you start to eat for energy, and you can start limiting some of these things that you used to think gave you energy because they may have gone in and given you a little bit of a sugar boost, but that wasn't the real energy that you needed. That gave you a sugar boost for maybe an hour, but it's not true energy coming from within your body, from this proper, process of nutrients going in the body, being broken down and building new cells and being able to recreate this for yourself every single day. So another thing that I want to make sure you understand is that, and this is where the food pairing comes in. I hope you're kind of seeing that in this section, that we have these proteins that are so good, but we have to pair it with really, really quality fruits and vegetables. And fruits and vegetables are filled with carbohydrates, yummy carbohydrates. And you also have whole grains over here. I'm separating this little section, but you also have whole grains over here that have carbohydrates. But I'm going to express to you the truth of all my research that fruits and vegetables want to be your main source of carbohydrates all day long. Feel free to grab fruits and vegetables all day long. they're going to help process these other proteins that you eat. The yummy Greek yogurts and the yummy sliced chicken and the deli ham and the tofu and the chili beans and these other proteins that you're eating that go in to give you energy. And you have these fruits and vegetables that you need to pair it with to make sure that your body can then take it and create metabolic energy. It will raise your metabolism. So where do the whole grains fit? Whole grains are they're like a punch. They're like a punch of carbohydrates. So while you're pairing those with a protein, right? You want to eat these grains, carbohydrates, or the more starchy tuber veggies like potatoes and sweet potatoes and corn. Those are really starchy, and so those are also a punch of carbohydrates. But here's the thing. Early in the day, so breakfast, lunch, we want to be eating those because those will fuel us for all day long. But our body, based on its internal clock, says we're going to bed for like 8 hours, and it starts preparing for bedtime 3 to 4 hours before bedtime. And it knows you are not going to need energy during that time, like as much energy as when we're awake. And so it says about 4 hours before bedtime, it starts to store energy so that you can go this long 8 or 9 hour period of not eating and you're sleeping. It's preparing to help you survive, and it's preparing to help you go through all the repairing information and repairing process that happens while we're sleeping. So it starts to store energy about 4 hours before bedtime. So if you lace your dinner with pasta and potatoes and rice and barley and bread and rolls and breadsticks, that will be stored. It will not be burned in that day. So it also creates these grains, these breads, these, oatmeal and that stuff. It creates so much energy. It goes in and it creates a lot of glucose, right? That's what all of our food turns to for our body to use it. So if you have that stuff for dinner, you will have gobs of glucose going through your veins. So people that start to cut out those types of carbohydrates 4 or 5 hours before dinner or before bedtime, so they're not eating them for dinner, they sleep better. They fall asleep faster. They sleep deeper because they don't have that kind of energy going through their body. They can sleep really, really deep. And let me tell you another awesome thing about this. If you cut those grains from your dinner, you actually, if your body needs energy while you're sleeping, it will dig into any stored fat and it will burn that for energy while you're sleeping, which is actually what our bodies were designed to do. We were not designed to have huge glucose carb-filled dinners. And so you'll find that if you cut that out, you will sleep deeper, which you will wake up so rested, and you will have so much more energy just from that. So I'm going to encourage you to pair your proteins with carbs from fruits and vegetables. And then if you want these grain items, eat them early in the day, like before 2 or 3 p.m. Eat them early in the day or wherever you have your dinner and end your day. It may be 4 p.m. or whatever, but about 4 or 5 hours before you go to sleep, stop eating those grains. No bread, no potatoes, no rice. Stop eating the starchy stuff before, and you will notice that you will sleep better. So keep your dinners to more of a fruits and veggies and protein type combination. You'll sleep better. I can almost just guarantee it because almost everyone that's done this has experienced that. So this is, our eating for energy principles right here. For breakfast, you want to have your grains, your fruits and veggies if you want, or just these high grains with this protein. So for a good, this is the last section, a good eating for energy day will look like maybe a whole grain, whole wheat pancakes or waffles with a little, maybe a little, maple syrup on the side, a good organic plain maple syrup. Maybe you'll have some fried eggs with it, maybe even some sausage, whatever you want. Maybe add a little, apple slices on the side. Drinking water. We only want to drink water because that allows our cells to function the best way that they can. It allows your liver to function the best way that it can. So we're drinking water. We're pairing our protein with our carbs all day, but then for our dinner, we're cutting out those really high carbs because we don't want that in our veins when we go to bed. And after dinner, we're not eating. We don't need to store we have enough from our day. We're going to go to sleep. So that's what an eating for energy day looks like. You're going to have this pairing of protein and carbs for breakfast, protein and carbs for lunch, and you can have grains all through there. And then for dinner, we're having protein and carbs, mostly from veggies and some light fruit, and then we're done for the day. It's very simple and it's very cool. So where do fats come in? I want to talk about fats because not all fats are created equal. We have fats, and what's cool about fats is we actually need fats for our brain. We need fats for so many vital functions in our body. And the good fats are avocado, nuts, and seeds, and even grass-fed butter in moderation, like a couple teaspoons a day. And I say grass-fed butter, meaning the cow that created the cream for this butter was grass-fed so that it doesn't have any of those inorganic materials in our food that also blocks our systems. So we need fats every single day, good fats, and like a quarter cup. Like you can have, some sliced avocado on that dinner salad. You can have fats any time of the day. It doesn't, the carbs are the thing we want to keep out at dinner, but you can have your avocado and a little sprinkle of cheese at dinner time. You can have, make sure that you're having a little bit of fat at every meal. So that's the other piece of the combo. I like to see that it's a 3-piece. You can have your protein, your good carbs, and then add a little accessory of fat in there. So with your salad, have that oil-based dressing. With, that taco, have a little bit of full sour cream, and you will be golden. So I hope that has helped you a lot. This is very basic principles. And that's kind of how all that stuff works. When you eat those whole grains earlier in the day, you're going to feel more full. You're going to feel more energized because they're going to have more fiber. One thing I want to point out is a really good grain carb. If you're looking at, I want these pancakes or I want this cereal. When you're looking at the nutritional label, make sure there's 1 gram of fiber per 10 carbs. That's kind of how you know if it's a really good punch of carbohydrates. If there's no fiber at all, don't buy it. It's an anti-food. It's not going to help you at all. So pancake mixes or breads or different things like that, look on the nutrition label and see that it has 1 gram of fiber per 10 carbs. And so if it's got 30 carbs, but it has 3 grams of fiber, it's good. And on protein items, if you're like, well, is my yogurt okay? Is cottage cheese good? If it has more protein than sugars, that's a pretty good indicator that that's a good source of protein. So I hope those guidelines helped you. I'm excited that you took this class. I have one more video for my class on meal planning, just kind of a quick introduction of how to do a meal plan, and then you'll be set to learn or to be moving forward with eating for energy.